Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. So, as some of you know, I live in Washington State where a lot of the coronavirus stuff has been going on. Didn't really want to talk about that in this video, but if you're interested, I have written up a brief blog post on my personal blog, which I'll link to in the description. And I'll probably do a series of updates as we see how this unfolds. A lot of things are shut down right now, people staying home, trying to stock up on food and things. It's interesting times. But I wanted to talk about, in this video, the latest adaptation of Jane Austen's Emma. And it's a movie that came out, I think, a week or two ago in the United States. And maybe also talk about some other adaptations I've seen. Emma's my favorite novel by Jane Austen. I read all of Jane Austen's novels when I was about 12, and this one just really resonated with me personally. Emma by Jane Austen is a novel about youthful hubris and romantic misunderstandings. It is set in the fictional country village of Highbury and the surrounding estates of Hartfield, Randalls, and Donwell Abbey, and involves the relationships among people from a small number of families. So this book was published in 1815, and it follows this girl, Emma, who is really a very lonely young lady. She has a very comfortable life. She's basically the upper crust of Highbury. But after her governess gets married, she's looking for a new friend and ends up meeting this gal named Harriet Smith and tries to arrange marriages for Harriet Smith and other people in her life, which doesn't go as well as she expects. It's quite a human novel because the main character is so down to earth with all of her flaws, and the characters span a range of age groups, classes, and perspectives. So there's some similarities to Pride and Prejudice, but what I really enjoy about Emma is the flaws of the main character and of the people that are the antagonists in her life. I recommend this book. I think Emma is still a super great story and one that just leaves an impression on you long after reading it. So as far as adaptations go, there's been several, and I haven't even seen all of them. Of course, the famous one is the Gwyneth Paltrow version from 1996. This is truly a classic adaptation, even just as far as costume dramas go. Gwyneth Paltrow was excellent as Emma. She definitely portrays her as kind of snobbish and aristocratic, but also the human side of her. You really do empathize with this Emma, and you really want her to be happy. Jeremy Northam plays Mr. Knightley, who is Emma's family friend, later on romantic interest, and he's great too. So this is a solid adaptation. Can't really go wrong with this one. And all the other supporting actors and actresses are good too. Actually, in 1996, there was a second adaptation with Kate Beckinsale, and I watched this one once. I don't remember a ton about it, except that Mr. Knightley in this version was a little more emotional than I expected. I didn't really feel like he portrayed the character as that sort of solid, grounded guy that Mr. Knightley is in the book. So, again, I don't really remember a ton about this adaptation, except that I didn't really like it. The third adaptation I watched was the 2009 series starring Romola Garai and Johnny Lee Miller. This one played on PBS. I remember us watching it at the time, trying to stream it online, and having to wait for it to buffer pretty terribly. Because we were on vacation. And I just really love this version. This 2009 series really brings out the humor in Emma. And there is a lot of humor. She manages to create some awkward social situations and misunderstandings. And Romola plays her as a very girlish Emma, kind of head in the clouds, thinks she knows best, but really is growing up throughout her attempts to matchmake and be the leading lady of Highbury. I really enjoy the costumes in this version. They're kind of unusual for a Jane Austen adaptation. You'll see a lot more of the long sleeves and just vibrant colors. I really, really love this version. Harriet Smith is really good in this version as well. She's the girl that Emma is trying to mentor and ends up leading astray. Mr. Elton's pretty good in this version as well. He's the vicar who is kind of a ladder climber in society. So yeah, this is a very fun version. It has its moments of gravitas, but just a joy to watch, I think. Not everyone will like Romola's portrayal. She is very, again, like I said, girlish, but I find her very relatable and a great actress. So yeah. Oh, and I should say Miller makes a great Mr. Knightley as well. One of the things about this book is there's actually quite an age gap between Emma and Mr. Knightley in the book. And Johnny Lee Miller manages to sort of span that age gap without making it weird or anything. So, great series. Okay, so that brings us to the 2020 version, which I just saw. I don't think there's been any adaptations since the 2009. So this is bringing back a story after over 10 years of no adaptations. The trailer is very whimsical, and as you can see, they're really trying to pull you in with the sets and the design. Everything's very color coordinated, very choreographed. And as I was watching the movie, I would say the trailer is absolutely what you would expect. Every minute, every piece of dialogue, every camera angle has been choreographed so that it just forms this continuous whole. It's very unlike any other Jane Austen film I've ever seen. Very quirky and whimsical. There's even this scene where her nose starts bleeding, which is kind of a surprise. I really had mixed feelings about it, honestly. It's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever watched in terms of the design and the decorations and things, but I also felt a little bit detached from it. It's almost as if it was just too orchestrated. And so, whereas you'd usually connect to the characters really well through sort of this immersive experience, this was more like watching a play or watching an opera. In fact, the movie starts out with opera music, so I was definitely getting into that mode, and I love opera, so not a big problem for me, but some people may be turned off by that. Let's talk about the cast. So, this gal playing Emma, she is really a good actress, very good at expressing the different emotions the character goes through. They've definitely cast her to be a very coy Emma, very, I don't know, again, playing very much on the aristocratic elements of her character, and this idea that she can kind of get away with everything because of who she is. Her friend Harriet Smith was very well cast. I really liked Harriet Smith in this version. There she is right there. Again, very comical, but also poignant, and you really are rooting for Harriet in this version to stand up for herself, which is great. Frank Churchill was just genuinely annoying. So this is the guy that Emma falls for fairly early on in this story. And he was okay. He just, I don't know. I'm not really sure he was well cast, honestly. But for the kind of character they were trying to portray, I guess he was pretty good. I don't know how I feel about Mr. Knightley in this version, honestly. So this is him here. He's portrayed very much as a younger character, even more than Johnny Lee Miller, I would say. And doesn't necessarily give off that kind of fatherly vibe that he does in the book or even in many of the other adaptations. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I would say a bit of a deviation from the original story. Although, again, the script is very true to the book, so you're not going to see anything explicitly different from the book. It's just that the way they've portrayed those non-verbal communication, the body language and so forth, he's definitely portrayed as this younger guy. But he's good. Miss Bates was great. So this is the gossipy lady that Emma just can't stand. She's really a good soul, but very annoying person to be around. And she was very well cast. I liked her a lot. And even though she doesn't have a lot of screen time, she made the most of what she had. So that was really great. Yeah. I would say it was an entertaining film. It kind of felt like a kid's film, to be honest. Just in the sort of quirky, almost Disney-esque vibe that the different scenes played out. I mean, again, very choreographed, almost cartoonish in some scenes. Especially this Mr. Elton, the clergy, he was very cartoonish. And it was, to me, a little bit over the top. Like, I think they could have got the same effect if they just been a little more reserved about that. In fact, the 2009 version actually did that really well. He was very awkward and funny, but not cartoonish. But again, that's kind of the general artistic direction they were going. So just as these other characters are very exaggerated, they had to exaggerate him even more. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I really still enjoy the Gwyneth Paltrow and the Romola Garai versions more. But it's fun to watch. The kind of movie that if you see it on the plane, that's probably the best time to watch it. Not that anyone's going to be flying anywhere in the near future, but if you see it on Prime or whatever, it's entertaining and a cute movie. So yeah, that's all I had for Emma. I actually want to read the book again at some point. This might be a good time to reread it. Let me know if you've seen it, if you've seen any of these films, what you thought. What's your favorite Jane Austen novel? If you've read Jane Austen or if you've watched the movies, which ones do you like? I still enjoy the movies. I'm just not as into the books as I used to be. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.